This is Alexander Valley in California, and this is what happens when the Russian River floods. The Russian River is one of the most popular rivers in all of California for kayaking, rafting, and tubing. It winds its way through some of the most beautiful scenery our state has to offer, including Armstrong Redwoods State Natural Reserve, which contains some of the tallest trees on Earth. Most of the water that fills it up comes from the snowmelt of Mount St. Helena, which is an active volcano and the second highest peak in the entire Mayacamas Mountains. The Russian River starts high up in the mountains and then travels more than 100 miles through rolling hills and vineyards before emptying into the San Pablo Bay near Healdsburg, California. But here's what most people don't know about the Russian River. However, every so often, typically in the spring when the snow is melting, the river rises dramatically and quickly, creating flash flood conditions. She was concerned that she and her husband might be getting a little bit too old to do this on their own, and I couldn't resist. How could I say no to that? So I got my kayak and headed over to her house where we met up with another couple and their two dogs. There was a huge log that had fallen across the river and created a dam. But because the river was so high, we had to make a decision. We could either go over the top of the log, which would be a little bit dangerous because of the height, or we could go through the cave. As we got closer, we realized that there was actually a small cave behind the log. But after days of rain and snowmelt, the river was raging and the water was muddy. Still, the conditions weren't anything that we hadn't trained for, and we knew the risks of going out on. A day like this, I paddled up to the entrance of the cave, closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and then ducked under the log. In the spring when the snow melts and the river rises, always wear a life jacket and never go kayaking alone. And that's what happened just a few days ago. But in my case, it was a little too late, and I ended up taking on a big load of water. Thankfully, the water was very cold, and I was able to warm up quickly once I got back on the river. I popped out of the other side of the cave, and sure enough, there was a big hole that was waiting for me. After we ate, we got back in our kayaks and started the long paddle back to the car. I was able to avoid the worst of it by getting my paddle in the water quickly, but I still got sucked in and spun around. The plan was to paddle upstream to the mouth of the river and then float back down to the car. We all agreed that we were glad to be done, and we headed home to change clothes and warm up. For most of its length, the Russian River is very slow moving, which makes it perfect for leisurely floating. I received a message from a viewer who lives in the area, and she said she was looking for people to go kayaking with her. We put in at the Johnson's Beach access point, which is right off of Highway 128 near the Russian River Bridge. Now, typically the Russian River is really calm, and the water is very clear. We put on our life jackets, got in our kayaks, and began paddling upstream. The current was strong, but the river was only about half a mile wide, so we knew we'd have a relatively quick paddle to get to the takeout point. As we rounded a bend in the river, we saw something that made us stop and take a double take. Now, normally the river is so low that you can easily go under this log. I decided to go first, and I told the group to watch out for the hole that was on the other side. As soon as I was under the log, I felt the water temperature drop about 20 degrees. When your group sees something that they've never seen before, it gives them time to prepare and think about what they're doing. We continued upstream until we reached the mouth of the river, where we stopped for lunch. The whole trip took us about 4 hours, which was much longer than the usual 90 minutes it takes to float this section of the river. So if you're ever in the area and you want to check out the Russian River, just be aware that it can be dangerous. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button, and I'll see you next time.